Last time on Growing Lilies. Lily woke up and noticed that every human is gone and that there are huge fires coming her way. She listens to her, now sentient, phone and leaves her apartment for the first time in forever. And she starts breaking the law almost instantly, but it's in order to survive whatever it is that has happened. When she has gathered enough supplies, she decides that the ocean is the safest way to go, so she heads down to the docks. And now her phone turns into a flirty boat who shows her that all the stars has disappeared as well. Chapter 6. That night, I had a dream. I had fallen asleep on the deck of my little boat, despite the cold. I couldn't look away from the sky, and exhaustion eventually claimed me. I dreamt that I was growing. Not like a giant, but more like a bacteria, or a mold, or a fungus. Perfect for someone like me. If this world was an orange, I was the penicillin growing into it. Splitting. Multiplying until I filled all of existence. Spreading out to fill the gaps where humanity had been. It was disgusting, but I couldn't stop. I wanted to stop. But it was my nature. The inner corrosive core of my being corrupts everything around me until it is either part of me or turned to ruin. By the time night fell in my dream, I thought that I had converted the entire earth, and that was the end of it. But when I looked into the night sky, nothing but more of me looked back. Countless, infinite, a sickening universe of my own filth staring at me. What the fuck is going on now? Wait, what? Is she like actually, can she like, was she transform into an actual lily? It makes sense now from the title. This feels interesting. Weird dreams, but okay. Okay. Lily awoke with a shout and immediately knew she'd made a huge mistake by falling asleep on the deck of the boat. She was lucky she hadn't fallen overboard, but more importantly right now, she was cold. So cold. Her bones ached down to the marrow. She couldn't feel her limbs past a certain point, and where she could feel was throbbing. When she tried to move, she felt like her body was made of lead. She opened her mouth to shout, but didn't have the energy. Slowly, carefully, she managed to crawl back over to the door to the cabin. Opening it was difficult. Her hands didn't want to close and grasp, but using both of them together, she got the door open and got inside. She tumbled down the few steps inside that led down into the main area, but it was only 3, so she didn't think she was injured. More importantly, she couldn't feel if she was. Oh God, so cold. She desperately looked around. What could she do? Hot water in the bath? She didn't think she could. She couldn't stand up and could barely get around on the floor. Thankfully, it was much warmer here. Then she remembered the bed. She clawed her way into the little bedroom and tried to get up on the bed, but it was too hard. She couldn't get her whole body up that high, so she pulled all the bedding off of it. Having maybe her first coherent thought of the day, she realized her clothes were wet from the sea breeze and pulled them off. It was agony. The warm air of the cabin was bringing back some small amount of warmth to her skin, and it was like something was peeling it off. The pain receptors from her elbows and knees down felt like they were all going off. She pulled the blankets around her tightly and shivered uncontrollably. Please warm up. Please warm up. Oh God, I shouldn't have fallen asleep. For a few minutes, she just lay in a ball, trying not to cry out from the pain while feeling slowly returned. Good job, Lily. Get to safety and immediately nearly off yourself. Her stupid teeth wouldn't stop shattering. It felt like her body wasn't warming up from the blankets, but she knew that was in her head. It could probably take a while, though. She had some experience with sleeping outdoors, and knew that if your core temperature was cold, it was difficult to bring it back up. But staying warm and dry was all she could really do. When she had any amount of her brain back, she looked around the room carefully. There! A thermostat! It was up on the wall, but if she could get onto the bed, she could probably reach it from there. So she made another attempt. This time her legs worked a little better. It was agony though. She was pretty sure it would be less painful if she just lost the damn legs. But she had to keep going. So she did. She pushed herself up onto the bed, then reached back down to grab the blankets. Wrapping herself back up, she turned her attention to the thermostat. She could reach it. It was set to 70 degrees, so she turned it up to 80. Too much hotter, and she wasn't sure she could take the pain of everything warming at once. The room temperature would take a while to come up as it was. So she wrapped herself up as best as she could, and tried not to cry. She tried, but she did. We all know she did. At some point, pain and exhaustion had taken enough energy from Lily that she had fallen asleep. She awoke a few hours later with a start. Her first thought was that she was so thankful she woke up alive. Her second thought was how she wished she was dead. She felt awful. There was still some stinging pain in her skin over most of her body. But even more than that, she had deep aches all over. Her muscles were beyond tired. She felt like she was a puppet, and someone had cut her strings. She could hardly move, and when she did, it hurt badly. I was gonna mention that before because of the temperatures, but this is also set in California, so I'm like, yes, this is American degrees. Imagine it was 80 fucking Celsius. If she wouldn't be warm at 70, if 70 is her normal, then it's like, okay, she's lost. She is lost. She let out a groan and spoke to her ceiling. But I didn't die. That's something, right? The ceiling refrained from answering. Fine. Be that way. She took a nice deep breath, coughed, eventually got control of it and sat up. There was a window and light was shining across the bed. Well, first things first. Let's check the damage. She examined herself as best as she could with no mirrors or help. Her hands and feet were still a bit red and painful to the touch. But she didn't see any blackness, which is what she thought frostbite looked like from TV. That was a good sign. The gash in her knee was still not pleasant, but it was superficial damage that was healing. There was a bruise running across her knee, even where the flesh wasn't damaged. She made a note to clean that off as best as she could and watch for infection. All in all, not too bad. She was going to be down for the count for a few days, but she had survived. Now she just had to figure out how to keep doing that without being able to really use her body. Taking a minute to breathe, she looked out the window. Huh, that's strange. There was only open ocean. Must be on the other side. She wanted to get a look at Saddle Mar from a distance and check whether the fires were still raging. Okay, so she is out on the ocean. She carefully got up, finding she could stand now if she really tried. It just wasn't pleasant. She kept her blankets wrapped around her body, absolutely taking no risks with the temperature today. Then she found her way to the captain's chair and sat down with the blankets cocooning her. She could only see the open ocean. Maybe from the back of the ship. She turned on the engine and let the cameras turn on, showing her the rear view. Open ocean. A paranoid thought crossed her mind. First the people, then the stars. Had the land disappeared now too? I love that that's more possible than I might just be on the open ocean. It's like all of the land has disappeared. It must be. It's the land. The earth is gone. It's now only water. No. That was dumb. But she had put the anchor down. So how was she out to sea? Well, okay. That wasn't even the most important part right now. How was she going to find her way back? She watched the waves out the window and tried to make her brain work. She felt so exhausted. A part of her wanted to just lie back down and figure it out when she woke up again. But another more urgent part refused. Okay, so She needed to return to shore. She looked at the fuel gauge. It was still nearly full. That was promising. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. How could she find her way back? Well, she knew what direction it was. If she had drifted out to sea, she had gone more west than anything else. So land should be east, right? Even if it wasn't the same spot on the shore, she could get to land if she just went east. This, I would not have even, I was like, I'm so bad with this, I wouldn't even start thinking of what way to go. I was like, I will just go around, like back. I'll just turn the boat and go that way. Because I would have obviously drifted forward. Otherwise, I would have gotten into the into land. So I'm like, if I just turn around, I'll be fine. I wouldn't even start thinking about fucking east or west. I don't know. I have no idea. That put her mind at ease a little. Okay, east then. First things first, though. She had to go above and figure out what went wrong with the anchor. At least pull it up so it wouldn't snag on anything while she was moving. She really, really did not want to. Her body was at its limit, even having gotten some sleep. But she made herself do it. She shed her blankets, realized she was naked underneath, cursed for a minute while she found her suitcase and opened it, and she didn't pack any clothes. Didn't I mention that? Maybe I didn't. Okay, but if your boat drifts, it's gonna spin too. I know, but it's like I don't have anything else to go on. So I would have just turned around and be like, well, I have nothing else to go on. I'm basically saying I would be fucked. Wait, really? No, that has to be a mistake. What kind of an idiot forgets to pack clothes? Ugh, stupid, 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 stupid. She reluctantly put on her still slightly damp clothes. I don't think that's good. It's only for a few minutes, right? Then she made her way above. She took a second to look all the way around and confirm that there was no land in sight. There was none. Lovely. Then headed to the front of the boat and took a look at the anchor. It didn't seem to have changed at all from last night. She experimentally lowered it a little to see if the chain would go slack. It did not. That more or less confirmed her suspicion. She must not have anchored it properly, because it wasn't touching the bottom now. So she pulled it all the way back up. It took a few minutes. Fortunately, it was not a cold day. The chill of the night had faded, and while the wind wasn't comfortable, especially in her damp clothes, she could withstand a short time of this. When she finished, she walked carefully back below deck, making sure not to risk being wobbly near the railings as best as she could. She got undressed and wrapped herself back up in her blanket's nest before sitting back down at the captain's chair. Okay, this probably isn't too bad. One of my less life-threatening mistakes over the last 24 hours. I just need to keep calm. East. How do I go east? She took a look over the boat console. Weird lever throttle. A wheel, speedometer, fuel tank, 2 screens that were off, 4 screens that showed views from outside the ship, a radio? A few black boxes she didn't recognize, and that was it. She was really hoping for a compass. Just one of those old-timer plastic orb ones or something would be enough. But there was nothing. If you ever forget, just know Japan is known as the land of the rising sun. This is because it is the first land to the east that sees the rising sun. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. You can also just remember time zones exist for a reason. I know, but I don't know the time. I know that. But thinking of, but it's like, okay, like if I go outside, I would be like, I don't know where I am. Like, I don't know. If I just look at a direction, it's like, I have no idea. But if I try, but it helps, like, I don't know. I always forget where it rises, like the sun. Okay, the sun rises in the east. So then it sets west. And then south is down and north is up. I only ever remember that north is up. I'm getting better though. Sun rises in the east, sets in the west. North is up, and south is down. Well, what about these black screens then? She reached over and felt around until she found a power button and pressed it. It came to life immediately, at a password screen. She could feel a scream of frustration rising in her chest, but she forced herself to take a deep breath instead. As she did, she examined the screen closely. At the top right, it showed the time, 12:36 p.m., and an N. Wait, let me try. Is she gonna press N? She turned on the throttle slightly and turned the boat to the right. She turned on the throttle slightly and turned the boat to the right. After a few seconds, the N turned into NE. She let out a half scream, half sheer in pure ecstasy, ecstatic joy. She was so relieved she could feel some tears forming in the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away. She continued turning the boat until the NE said E, and then let go of the wheel and made sure it didn't change too quickly. She turned the throttle slightly forward until it hit about 10 something. That was not miles per hour, but it felt roughly the same. Okay, that seems like a nice and safe speed. I won't hurry. I'll go nice and slow. We'll get there eventually. So she turned her attention to the rest of the console while the boat continued forward. She found the power for the other black screen and turned it on. This one she couldn't decipher very easily. It had a shifting pattern of colors and a number on it, but the number definitely wasn't speed or anything else she recognized, so she decided to sit and stare at it for a little while. After 5 minutes, she still wasn't totally sure. The number was going down on average, but not linearly. Maybe it was sensing how far she was from land somehow. Was that possible? She shrugged and decided to give up for now. Her stomach growled loudly. It had been a long time since she'd eaten anything. She'd snacked a little while shopping yesterday, but that had been it. She carefully turned the throttle down to 0. Lily was pretty sure that the boat wouldn't crash or capsize or whatever if she went to the kitchen for a second to grab some food, but she was taking absolutely no stupid risks. She could just start it again when she got back. Finding her way to the kitchen, she grabbed herself some fruits, Pop-Tarts, an energy drink, and a bag of chips. It was not a healthy breakfast. She didn't care. She just needed to eat, and sugary crap food was the order of the morning. She also grabbed one of the laptops as she headed back to the captain's chair, and the next Blu-ray of Friends. Making her way back, she bundled up on the chair again. She was still sorta cold. Putting the boat back to speed and a Pop-Tart in her mouth, she opened up the laptop and began some setup. Hell yeah. Chapter 7. During her time at the helm, she'd gotten the first laptop set up. Username Lily. No password because she'd grown a special disdain for passwords over the last day. Unfortunately, with the computer completely empty and no Wi-Fi, there was a limited amount of things to do. She went to pop the Friends disk into the disk drive, but found that there wasn't one, which made sense. Most laptops don't have them anymore, so she set it aside and had a brainstorming session instead. What did she need to do today? Well, putting aside getting back to Sena Del Mar as a given, what else? She would need to figure out how to dock the boat. Hopefully a space in the dock survived. If not, she might have to find a private dock or a different harbor even if it's further away. But even after that, she was going to be so pressed for time these next couple days. The electrical grid probably wouldn't hold up forever, and neither would the internet. There was a strong possibility that both were already out across the majority of the city. If she was able to get power and an internet connection though, surely she should try to preserve as much data she might need later as possible, right? Everything from YouTube videos, to digital books, to could she download all of Wikipedia? Probably not easily. Maybe she could find out where the actual physical servers were located for YouTube and Wikipedia. If she could get access to those, she could figure out preserving the data later. In the meantime, she could find things that would be useful until she was set up. Books about survival, agriculture, engineering. She would need to know enough about how things like solar panels and battery systems worked to set them up without electrocuting herself. It was fine if she had the information and it took a while to learn. It wasn't fine if the data was lost forever. She thought about the Library of Alexandria. How one burning library permanently erased so much knowledge for all of mankind, and how it all went up in flames. It was a strange parallel to her current situation. Wait, how much of that story was true, and how much was just from popular media anyways? She checked Wikipedia, but stupid internet. Stupid phone not working. Fine. She wanted as much data as she could get before things went down totally. Ideally, software to rip things like discs and other forms of media too, so she could digitize the physical stuff she found. She didn't want to be caught in a situation 10 years from now where all she'd been able to do to keep from dying of boredom is watch Friends every night for a decade. I mean... Huh. That's probably a good sign, that I can think about 10 years from now at all. Okay, aside from that, what else did she need to collect before it degraded? Maybe domesticated animals? Chickens? Cows? Dogs? Wait. Her stomach lurked. Wait. What about people's pets? All of those animals are locked in people's houses. All the dogs, cats, rabbits, hamsters of the world that were now without people. Some might escape, but most, they were all going to die. She could spend the next 2 weeks releasing as many of them as possible, and she probably wouldn't even get through all of Senna del Mar, much less the rest of the world. Oh God, I can't. She couldn't think about this. She couldn't. She couldn't let this become a responsibility. Even if she tried her best and did things perfectly, she couldn't save even 0.5% of them, and she would lose out on her opportunity to save things that mattered to her own survival. But she was the only one left. She tethered on the edge of an abyss. On one side, trying desperately not to think about it. Selfishly focusing on her own needs and being willfully ignorant to preserve her sanity. On the other, a pit of despair. Trying desperately to help creatures that would thank her by trying to harm her, and failing to do even the tiniest fraction of that. But her conscience would be clear. The choice was obvious, but her heart broke in her chest. I'm a selfish, pathetic worm. But I have to focus on my own well-being. I have to. I can't let this be my responsibility. The moment I do is the moment I plunge into a losing battle that might kill me. I can't do it. It's not my fault. It's not my responsibility. It's sad, but I am powerless to do anything. She tried to reason with herself. She felt like she was going to puke. She forced her mind to turn in a different direction. No, none of that. Her body was weak. She couldn't afford to puke. It hurts, but I am going to live through this. I made it through day 1. I refuse to let a stupid thought take me down. She said it, but in her heart another voice whispered, "You survived day 1, with help. Yes, from sentient phone boat, friend." Lily ignored it. Forced her mind to work on something more practical. Domesticated animals. If she got some chickens and a cow, she could have fresh eggs and milk for quite a while, right? She didn't know anything about raising them, but she liked eggs and milk and wanted to keep having them. Damn. He's like, I have no idea, but I want fucking eggs and milk, bitches. Give. So they were on the list. Bacon would be nice too, but she didn't think she could kill and butcher an animal. I was gonna say, I don't think Lily has the mentality to kill an animal. And, no. Deep breaths. This is going to be okay. What else did she need before anything else? A home base. Maybe just this boat if she could put it in a convenient enough place. Wait. A cow and chickens wouldn't fit. Okay, she would need 2 bases. Land base and sea base. She could do that. Maybe she could find a swanky mansion on the beach or something. Then she could get her cow and chickens. And figure out how to make cheese. She couldn't live without cheese forever. How did she even make it anyway? And butter. Butter was a necessity for human life on Earth. That is to say, necessary for me, and I am the human life on Earth. She giggled to herself dazedly. Wait, she was starting to drift off. She shook her head and forced herself awake. Adjusting in her seat, she realized with a start that she was still naked. She slapped her forehead. Oh my God, Lily, get it together. Clothes. She needed to get clothes. Nice loose clothes that could move around easily and that wouldn't tear and would protect her from the elements. Pretty clothes can wait. Jeans, work shoes, simple shirts, and a jacket were at the top of her list. As Lily sat, staring out the front of the boat, her mind was starting to slow down. She could feel the thoughts coming to her slower and slower. Her eyes started to drift. She slapped her cheeks as hard as she could. No, no falling asleep. If she fell asleep while the boat was moving, she might crash. If she turned it off, she might drift further. She couldn't let that happen. Awake, awake, she told herself loudly. That wasn't working. So she parked the boat and went to find the Nintendo Switch to keep her awake. It had been about an hour at the helm when the shore came into view. Shore, but no city. What? Is she somewhere else? Lily stared dumbfounded at the shoreline from her boat. She'd maintained a safe distance so she wouldn't sink the boat on rocks or whatever else was under the waves. But there was no city. What the hell? Obviously, she must have drifted north or south instead of just west. But how could she find out which? Staring at the shore wasn't giving her any ideas. Well, it was finally time. I'm going to break into my stupid phone even if I have to wipe it. I need a GPS app. She found her way to the bedroom and dug around in her suitcase until she found her phone again. She turned it on and tried a few passwords she might have changed it to. Girl bitch? No. Lily Loner with a 3? No. Haven't used that one since middle school. Stupid. Strawberry milk? Nothing. But then she tried typing in her usual password one last time. The phone unlocked immediately. What the hell? Why didn't it work yesterday? She turned over to her alarms first thing. They were all still there. Every one that had gone off yesterday. At the same times they had gone off. But there was nothing else of note. Suspicious. She looked, and she didn't have a great signal, but having one at all meant that a cell tower was still up close enough by. That was good news. She started by calling everyone on her contact list. Most of the numbers didn't even ring. That was bad news. But more or less what she expected. From there, she opened her GPS. She was about 8 miles south of Santa del Mar, and the GPS worked. Well, even. She was worried about signal strength, but apparently this close to the shore it was fine. All right, all aboard! Wait, that's trains. Oh well, it's whatever I want now. Shoo shoo! She turned the ship gently left and started up the coast. She got a little scared that she might hit something under the water, so she pulled even further from shore. But then her phone didn't want to connect. Her GPS still seemed to work though. She stared at it. I remember reading that GPS works through government satellites. Does it not go through the cell towers at all? Well, that's convenient. +1 victory for Lily. She was feeling pretty good all of a sudden. Just a couple small wins, and suddenly she was riding an emotional high. She was feeling confident. Today she was turning this apocalypse around. She was going to nail the next 24 to 48 hours and ensure that her time in this world is as comfy as she can make it. By crimes, because that's how she felt confident yesterday. More crimes, let's go. Chapter 8. Her emotional high lasted until she started struggling to stay awake again. She knew her body was healing from all the exertion and probably some minor hypothermia, but being this out of energy was ridiculous. She didn't have the time to spend sleeping today. Today was too important. When the boat pulled into the harbor, Lily noticed a few things right away. The fires had burned considerably lower, but there were a few places that still looked like they were smoldering. The dogs looked bad, but not completely unusable. Several of the, lanes? What were they called? Several long rows of dock had burned away, and a number of those boats seemed to have sank as well. But on the far side, there was one that looked scorched but intact. So she decided she'd try to park there. Was it still called parking? Oh well, it was now. But before she could, she noticed the third thing. A few miles away, one of the still smoldering smoke plumes was rising. It was a notably different color than the rest of the smoke, though. More of a dark purple than an actual black. She stared at it for a while. Do I investigate or stay away? What if it is radioactive or some weird chemical? But what if it's a person sending a signal or something? Wait, do I want to find another person? She had to think about that. I love that like quote unquote normally in like apocalyptic scenes like this, then it's usually like, I have to find people, I need people. And she's like, do we even want to find another person? Amazing. A society of people would be probably good, but a single person. She remembered reading a story in middle school about a woman meeting a strange person in the post-apocalypse, and that person being increasingly cruel. She shook her head. Time for that later. For now, parking. She gently drove the boat forward, trying to get a good angle to place it right next to the dock. All her experience in games paid off. She nailed it. Well, sort of. The boat definitely hit the dock a bit, but she was going slow, so it didn't count, right? But now what? If she just hopped down, she wouldn't have a ramp. How did she get a ramp? Also, how did she make sure the boat didn't just drift away? Anchor it? She pulled out her phone. She had a signal. Without hesitation, she brought up YouTube and searched how to dock a boat. The first video she watched only covered pulling the boat up to the dock, and the presenter said a lot of words she didn't understand at all, but it seemed like she'd done most of it adequately. He said at the start the most important things was not to pull in faster than you were willing to hit the dock, and she'd done that, even if she hadn't got the angle quite right. The second video she watched covered the ropes and ties you had to do in order to tie a boat securely to a dock. It was arcane nonsense to her, but she was pretty sure that if she had the video up while she was doing the knots, she could follow along, so that was good enough. But that sense she'd gotten a few times now that something was off was building in her stomach again. There was something wrong that she hadn't noticed quite yet. So she thought about it. Something to do with the ropes and the boat. Rope on the front, rope on the side, rope on the back. That all was pretty simple. At least she thought she could manage. What was she missing then? Deciding to just move on, she went to find the spots that the ropes tied to on the boat side. She found the one on the front of the boat, and instantly she realized what was wrong. The boat hadn't been tied to the dock last night. She didn't untie any ropes before she left. Whatever magic had conjured the boat had also kept it totally still while she loaded her things until she had pulled away. Well, okay. That was weird, but no weirder than a boat showing up out of nowhere, right? So she shrugged and continued on. It took her about 15 minutes to get the boat secured to the dock in a way that she felt comfortable. It wasn't just going to drift away immediately. She had put on her damp clothes again, but at least she wasn't freezing anymore. The scariest part was when she had to jump from the boat to the dock the first time. She must have pulled away without the ramp last night, but she was able to find one on the dock that was for another ship and bring it back to use with her boat. With that, she was ready to go into town. She marched up to the parking lot and found her car. It was a burnt-out shell. Well, walking was hard, but she made herself do it. Up the little road that led down into the harbor, and its stupid little incline. She had to take a break halfway up, like a mountaineer doing a challenging climb. So she opened her phone again and looked around with the GPS. Where should she go first? Maybe a Walmart? The doors shouldn't be locked because they were usually 24-hour, right? They'd have clothes, and if she was lucky, maybe power and an internet connection. That sounded a little too hopeful, though. The thought of entering such a huge store while it was completely empty was unsettling, but it would have what she needed. Wait, if the power was off, how was she even supposed to see? Wouldn't it be super dark? Oh, she hated that. Going through an abandoned store that big with only a flashlight, if she could even find one? Wait, her phone had one, right? She checked. It did! Still, that seemed super scary. Yeah, fuck no. Do I just have to get over myself and do it? It's not going to get any easier, and I'm going to have to scavenge places like that eventually, right? She had her phone point her to the nearest Walmart. It was over an hour's drive away. Wait, really? This town doesn't have a Walmart? How did I not even know? So She tried a target instead and found one right away. Typical bougie bullshit. They were basically the same anyway. Now for the next problem. It was several miles away, and she needed a way to get there. Well, the only thing she could think of was to walk in that direction and keep her eyes out for cars that weren't burned out. Walking was such a problem. Her legs felt like jelly, and all her body really wanted to do was lie down in the middle of the street and sleep for a few hours. But she knew she was on a time-sensitive mission, so she pushed herself hard. She wanted to cry. Here we go. The scenery was about as she'd expected. Vaguely the shape of the city, but apart from the burnt frames of the buildings, it was hard to see anything usable. She didn't want to go into any of the burned out buildings because she wasn't sure if they'd still be structurally stable. Even if she lived through a collapse, no one would be coming to save her. That's an awful thought. She kept vigilant to look for anything that might help her though. Once she spotted a bike and got excited, but not only was it locked up, the wheels were entirely melted. She kicked it, and immediately regretted it as a pain radiated through her leg. Continuing on, she saw a lot of ruined vehicles, but nothing particularly usable. She was wishing she knew how to hotwire a car when she saw something strange. You have YouTube. YouTube. In the middle of the road, there it was. A fire. A little fire. Only about the size of her palm, but still burning. Initially, she thought maybe it was some kind of still ignited sewer gas leak from beneath the pavement. But she got closer. Something was still off about it. Flame friend? She couldn't tell what it was that was burning without closer examination, but it was small and not at all showing signs of going out. She continued to edge closer. It didn't look real somehow. Her mind wanted to say video game fire, but that wasn't quite right. The flames definitely were just flames. There was just something a little uncanny about it that didn't feel right. She decided she would get closer until she could feel the heat on it. But she didn't. She bent down right next to it. It wasn't putting off heat. Then she realized what had seemed wrong in her mind. It wasn't putting off smoke either. No heat, no smoke. Just flames. Ooh. What the hell? Flame friend! Chapter 9. She had things she had to be doing. She really did have a lot on her plate. But she couldn't just walk away from this. At a glance, it seemed supernatural. But Lily didn't believe in anything supernatural. Okay, well, maybe she was scared of ghosts and stuff sometimes, but this was different. Fire with no heat or smoke. Maybe it was radioactive? She scurried back away from it at the thought, and immediately pulled out her phone. I would have taken a picture of it. Is that weird? I was like, I need a picture of this. But searching for heatless flame and radioactive fire didn't show anything like this. Searching for how to tell if something was radioactive brought up generally unhelpful results too. But she didn't think it was. Wasn't radioactive light blue? Besides, radioactivity put off heat. That's how reactors worked, right? So what the hell was this? Lily got up her courage and tried the most primitive approach to gaining knowledge humans had ever invented. Is she gonna touch it? She found a piece of metal near one of the burnt out buildings and brought it over to the fire. Then she poked it. Nothing happened. The material that was burning inside might be wood, but that was even stranger. She poked it again. Yep, it definitely seemed like wood. So why wasn't it getting consumed by the flames? Why didn't the flames feel hot? Could wood be radioactive? She googled it. It seemed like the wood gathered from radioactive areas like Chernobyl might emit radioactive smoke if burned. But this wood wasn't emitting smoke at all. Plus, where would all the other pieces of radioactive wood be? So she scratched that off her list of worries. Okay, Lily, it's time for science. Don't let yourself believe in something stupid. This is right in front of you. It exists. So it has a natural phenomenon that explains it. So figure it out. Step 1. Observation. It doesn't produce heat or smoke. Will it spread to other flammable objects? She looked around. Everything flammable was burned. What now? I'd like to know if it's gonna spread before I touched it with my bare hands. She got a terrible idea, but went with it. Removing her shirt, she dangled a sleeve into the flame. Nothing happened. She was relieved, but even more stumped about this stupid fire. She put her shirt back on and stared at it. Is this some kind of illusion? It's definitely real, right? Maybe I'm hallucinating. Well, better disregard that. I can't easily rule it out without someone to help. So, She reached out and touched the burning material. She was wrong about it not putting off any heat. It was pleasantly warm, but that was it. So she picked it up and stared at it in her palm. It wasn't hurting her skin at all. Okay, step 2. Hypothesis time. Hypothesis time. This is an illusion, either in my brain or through some kind of natural occurrence in the wake of fire. So, how do I disprove it? Do illusions show up on film? She took a picture with her phone. Hey! Her phone showed her holding a piece of wood that was quite clearly on fire. It actually looked a little like she was casting a fireball in an RPG, and that gave her a little thrill. Wish I could show it to someone. They'd just claim it was Photoshop anyways. Okay, so it shows up on film. What else can an illusion not do? She stared at it for a second. Well, fire would normally put off light too, right? Under the sun as she was, it was hard to tell if it was or wasn't. So she walked for a bit, looking for a sufficiently shady place to find out. She thought about climbing into a dumpster she passed, but then thought better of it. If she got stuck or something, that would be a horrible way to go. Getting stuck in a dumpster. Then she spotted a sewer drain, but remembered seeing in movies sewer gas causing explosions and decided against that too. Eventually, she found her way out to a ruined building that was casting a shadow and put the wood up against it. Then she leaned over it to block out even more sun. It wasn't quite as bright as she expected, but it was definitely casting light. Like every time she is like, oh, I remember this from the movies, that sewer gas causes explosions. I was like, I didn't know that. I'm so much more convinced that if this happened to me, I would just die immediately. Like, I will not make it. There is zero chance of survival. Lily sat down and stared at the wood. What are you? It seemed clear to her that it wasn't in her head, at least as certain as anyone could be about something like that. It didn't seem to be an illusion either, because her phone showed it clearly and it was having observable impacts on the world around it. That seemed pretty conclusive to Lily. Okay, hypothesis number 2. She pointed accusatorily at the fire. I don't know, but you're coming with me, magic wood. She picked it up, deciding she would do experiments on it later if it was still burning. What would happen if she submerged it in water? She put it in her pocket, then waited a second to see if that would start to burn. But it didn't. So she turned and continued her march to find a non-burned part of the city. We have claimed a flame friend! It took her another 15 minutes of walking to start seeing things that weren't burned to the ground. Crossing the freeway had been a good idea. She had walked to a nearby car on the freeway that was fine but seemed to be totally out of gas. Left running with the keys in the ignition. But now that she was beginning to see things that weren't totally burned out, she was less stressed. She could repeat her car theft from yesterday no problem, and this time she knew to knock on the doors of the houses and listen for barking first. She found a suitable house with an unlocked door and knocked. No sound. She knocked again and again and again just to make sure. Still no sound. Entering the house was easier this time, emotionally. The electricity didn't seem to still be on, but there were some bottles of water stacked on top of the fridge, so she drank one and kept the second one. Her pocket fire was surprisingly great for lighting the way through the dark house, and it only took a few minutes to find a set of keys. They were laying on a coffee table. She checked the bedroom for clothes that might fit, but this person had been significantly thinner than her. So she moved on. It was crazy to think about what an ordeal this exact same process had been for her just yesterday. It still didn't feel good, but she could do it. She could do this. She would live in this stupid world. The car itself was nice. It was a mom van, but that was kind of perfect for Lily's needs, as she was thankful for it. A pickup truck might have been even nicer. She'd have to get one. Starting the car, she giggled to herself. Never thought I'd want one of those, but oh, how the times change. The car ride to the Target was nice and easy, and to her pleasant surprise, it was not burned down. She approached the doors. They didn't open. She let out a sigh of frustration. Lily hadn't thought to bring her door demolisher, so she tried wrenching them apart with her hands. They didn't budge. Ugh, I don't have time to do this again. This time, she wasn't being chased by fire. If she ruined her only car, she could get another. So she hopped in and backed it up to the doors. It was precarious going between the big red ball set pieces they had out front, but she managed. She carefully drove her bumper right up to the glass and then pressed the gas. She thought if she applied pressure rather than crashing into it, she might get away with less damage to the car. At first, nothing happened, other than the engine making a sound. But then she heard the start of a crack, followed by a huge crash, and her car backed up suddenly. Stopping as quickly as she could and pulling forward, she took a look at her handiwork. Sure enough, there was a hole big enough to climb through. Getting back out of the car, she smirked to herself. Getting pretty good at this breaking and entering thing. In the back of her mind, she heard an echo from yesterday. This is how killers become serial killers. Oh, shut up, it's fine. I'm doing what I have to. Deciding pointedly not to think too hard about that, she stepped carefully over the threshold and into the store. The power was still on, which was a pleasant surprise. She had to snag a USB cable from one of the cashier computers, but she used that to plug in her phone, and went about her shopping. Well, shopping, anyway. Grabbing a cart, she headed over to the women's wear. But it only took her a few minutes to be pretty dissatisfied. She needed durable work clothes more than anything else, and all this was cute but not really what she needed for survival. Well, it wouldn't hurt to get one nice-looking outfit, so she found a cute black tee with a purple heart on the front, and a pair of more comfortable jeans. Then she headed over to the men's section and tried on work boots until she found a pair that fit. Grabbing 3 pairs of them just in case, she moved on. Once she found out what sizes fit her, she made sure to grab at least 10 of everything. 10 pairs of jeans, 10 short-sleeved shirts, 10 long-sleeved shirts, and, well, only 2 jackets and sweaters. More would be excessive. Finally, she headed back over to the women's section to get bras and underwear. Brass? I was like, what the fuck is a brass? Bras. Fuck English, dude. English sucks. I hate this. She got some bras. I was like, why? Finally, she headed back over to the women's section to get bras and underwear. She was always bad at picking out a good bra, so she figured out vaguely what size she wanted and then grabbed a bunch that were close to it. The old shotgun approach works every time, as long as money isn't an issue. In the women's section. Why would she even care about fucking bras, dude? Fuck it. There's no one else here. While she was here, she decided to look around the rest of the store too. Lily didn't have any real use for the furnishings, because she didn't have a home base yet, other than the boat, and that was well furnished as it was. She stopped by the electronics section. She'd need to come back and grab any media she didn't already have at some point, but that would need to come after she figured out what media she did have. The toy section was nearby. So she walked over and eyed it a bit. Not a lot she was interested in. She'd never gotten into Lego or any of the building stuff despite having a passing interest in engineering. Should I grab all the trading cards? Not like I have anyone to play with them with. I could collect? Yes. Might help pass some time. She tossed them into the cart just in case. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering. She always liked card games, but never had the money to play them. Me. Now she had the cards, but no one to play with. As if she did before. With a sigh, she continued down the aisle. Oh. She turned the corner and saw a bunch of very cute-looking stuffed animals. For a few seconds, she was embarrassed about wanting one. Or 2. Or 4. But then she realized, why would she need to be embarrassed? So she can't... She is embarrassed about about getting a stuffed animals, but she feels the need to get bras. If I want it, I can have it. So which one do I want? She looked over them with interest. Which one would look nice on her bed in her little boat? She grabbed a large, chubby seal and put it into the cart. You're coming home with me, little gal. She laughed and put on a silly voice for her seal friend. Oh, wow, Lily, you're so forward. Can't you at least take me to dinner first? Oh my god, they're talking. Oh my god. Girl, you don't need dinner. You are already, she stifled a giggle, stuffed. She nearly doubled over. She needed a good laugh. Taking her new friend with her, she went back to the furnishing area with an idea. Lily searched for a clear vase, and when she found one, she removed the wood from her pocket and dropped it in. There, now it's a lamp. I'll put it on the table on my boat or something. Lily decided that was enough for now, so she retrieved her phone and left to unload everything into her van. It took a few minutes, but once she had finished, she sat in the driver's seat and thought, well, now what? She'd gotten used to being propelled by the emergency of the moment, and now that she had some choices on her hands, she was struggling to choose. She really just wanted to go back to the boat and sleep. She needed to rest her body so badly she could barely stand it, but it wasn't a real option. So she put that thought aside. She could go investigate the purple fire, or she could go to a library, or maybe the university, or she could drive the coast and look for a nice house. Maybe she could find one with a private dock and claim it. So many ideas, but she was so tired. Now that she was in dry clothes, it was especially difficult to keep focused. The warmth of her body heat filling the fabric was so nice. It felt like her mind was stuffed with cotton. Maybe she could just nap for a few minutes. She awoke seconds later to the sound of her van's horn, with her face resting on the wheel. Deciding enough was enough, she grabbed her phone and headed back into the Target. She remembered seeing a bedding section with actual beds. It was time for a proper nap. Lily left herself an alarm for an hour and a half and lay down on the display bed. It felt strange, but not strange enough to keep her awake. She hugged her seal and fell asleep. It was the best sleep she'd had since the world ended. I wonder if she will dream more about her growing and consuming the world. Because that was interesting. Chapter 10. Lily awoke to the sound of her alarm. For a terrible second, she panicked, but it was just the alarm that she had set to make sure she didn't sleep too long. With a groan, she sat up and looked at her new stuffed friend. I'm still so tired. How about you, huh? The seal didn't respond. She was still dead, but she'd awoken feeling so much better than earlier. I thought she meant that the seal was still dead. The seal didn't respond because it was dead after Lily killed it and made it a stuffed animal. If she wasn't properly losing opportunities by the second, she wouldn't get up. But a short recharge was still a recharge, and she'd take what she could get. She rose, grabbed her things, and found her way to the soda aisle. There she grabbed a rock star, of course, and headed back to the van. Once she was behind the wheel, she faced the same question as earlier. Where was the most likely to find a working internet connection? Maybe the library? Santa Del Mar had a university too, but Lily was a little nervous about going there. She had heard it was pretty big and she didn't want to get lost. Plus, she wasn't totally sure even how to get in. Why was this so hard? Just make a decision. First one that comes to mind was the library. Do that. She popped open her GPS and directed herself to the library. It was only a short drive. At one point, her seal fell off the passenger seat, so she parked and buckled it in, but otherwise the trip was uneventful. That is, until she arrived. The library was a smoldering ruin. But that wasn't all. It was also the source of the purple smoke she had spotted earlier. Lily sat in her car, staring at the plumes of dark purple billowing out of the husk of the library. Should she go in? She kind of wanted to see what was causing such strange smoke. On the other hand, what if it was poison, or some strange chemical, or worse? What kind of strange chemical would be in a library? More than that, given the ever-burning fire she already found, what if this was another anomaly? If things like this were going to be commonplace for her, shouldn't she try to learn about them? But she sat in her car, frozen. She was scared. It could be dangerous. But she should at least try to get close enough to see what it was, right? Okay, Lily, you gotta do this. Just get off the car and go take a look. Easy. She didn't move. She willed herself to get out and go look. She couldn't. Staring at the smoke, she wondered why this was so hard. I did so many scary things yesterday. Why is this different? Exhaustion? No. She'd been exhausted then too. Stress build up? She'd been riding 100% stress capacity since the world ended. So what? If anything, this should be easier. There was nothing pushing her to do it or die. Oh. There was nothing pushing her to do it or die. That's why it was so much harder. Yesterday, everything she'd done, she had no other choice but to do. Today, she was languishing on every decision, freezing up, unsure of herself. It's because I'm not going to die if I don't do it. Yes, that was it. Lily had always been controlled by her fears and anxieties. It had trapped her in her apartment for years, while the entire world kept going and passed her by. The only thing that eventually got her to move was the threat of burning alive. Now that that threat was gone, things were different. It was like a river. Normally, she was confined to her little riverbed, flowing along a well-worn path, with no deviation. Yesterday, there was a flood, and for the first time in forever, she broke free of that. But now that she wasn't in mortal danger, she was sinking back into that confinement. No, she refused. This might be a stupid place to make her stand, but she was going to make her stand right now. This was the turning point. Either be brave and go examine this strange smoke, or it was only going to be easier to turn tail and run next time. This was the time. This was it. It was either break free of her fears right now or sink back into them for the rest of her life here. Lily could see two paths ahead of her. The one where she learned everything there was to know about this new world. Explore it, conquer it, make it hers. The whole world, her new containment. Or the one where she didn't. She could leave. She could make herself comfortable. She could live in a little house and make sure she had enough food and water to survive until she eventually died, never having left for more than basic needs. She had to choose, right now. I'm going. She didn't move. I said I'm going! Still nothing. Why was this so hard? She wasn't held by anything. It was in her head. She railed against it. All of the things that always kept her from doing what she wanted to do. Fear, anxiety, self-hatred, depression. It was all there. It was a cage. And right now she had to hit it hard enough to make a dent, or she knew she would never be strong enough again. In her mind, chains creaked, metal bent. She shoved her phone in her pocket, grabbed her ever-burning flame vase and her seal. And this seal! She opened the door and got out, breaking into a run. About 3 steps later, she had to slow down. Her body was exhausted to the point of being near broken still. She doubled over and caught her breath, but then continued forward. She wasn't going to lose this momentum. Slow or not, she would break through. She had to break through. It was stupid to run towards a fire like this. Lily didn't care. This was about more than that. She was going to claim agency over her life right now, even if it killed her. Something inside her snapped. The library was set in one of the nicer parts of town. It had been a very nice building, if not a particularly large one. On the outside, the gardeners had made a considerable effort. There was ample greenery, a few benches to sit on, and even some carefully trimmed bushes that provided some natural containment and privacy for those reading outside. Of course, now all that remained were the melted remnants of the benches, the metal guides for the plants to grow along, and ash. The building didn't hold up much better. 4 large concrete pillars that had helped bear the load of the roof remained standing, but the roof had caved in, and the flammable material had all burned away. If any books remained, which was unlikely, they'd be buried under the remains of the roof. Climbing carefully onto the rubble was a girl holding a chubby seal plushie in front of her like a shield. Oh. Lily was careful to touch each new foothold gently before applying pressure, to make sure it would hold her weight and wouldn't be burning hot. The view from the inside was more of the same. It was devastation. Nothing had survived. It pained Lily to see. There had been so much knowledge and creativity here that was now lost. Sure, copies of the same materials probably still existed. She would find them too. But every lost library, every lost archive, every lost database, even every lost personal PC was worth mourning. Humanity might be gone, but she could at least preserve the ghosts. As she grew closer to the center, where the mass of purple smoke was still rising, she could see flames licking up from underneath it, despite there likely not being anything left to burn. While that was strange enough, the flames were green. She did a quick Google search on her phone, but nothing particularly useful came up, especially not for these two colors together. Lily drew closer. The fire was emitting some kind of sparks? Well, no, not sparks. They didn't look electric, more like the kind of sparks you'd get from one of those handheld fireworks sparkler toys, but they were smaller and went out quickly. Okay, this is definitely not normal, but what is it? Lily inched closer. Unlike her personal flame, this was putting off heat and she had no intention of getting too close. This was definitely another anomaly. Strange things had been happening constantly since yesterday, and Lily wanted answers. Any answers at all. So, she observed. Then, something caught her eye. She'd been so focused on the green fire that she hadn't noticed. Her eternal flame was reacting. She lifted it in front of her. It still looked the same, but the flames were quite a bit larger than earlier. Huh, what the heck? Do you just like other fires? She took a few steps away and held the flame further from the green fire. It went down slightly. She brought it closer again and it flared up once more. Weird. She stared at the green fire again. Tucking her seal under one arm, she took out her phone and snapped a picture of the green fire. The picture came out showing clearly what she saw with her own 2 eyes. Okay, still not an illusion, probably. And what was going on? Lily was pretty sure that nothing in the library would normally burn like that, so there was something more to this. She was determined to figure it out. I have to live in a world full of junk like this now, so I'm not giving up. You hear me, Green Fire? I'm not leaving until I understand even a little bit how you work. So, what are you? Tell me your secrets. She expected nothing, and was really just speaking out loud for the comfort of it. But the green fire reacted. She could swear it did. It burned lower for a moment and then redoubled, raging even stronger. Ooh, it's an angry fire. That had to be a coincidence, right? She knew human brains were wired to find patterns, even if there were none there. So she was skeptical, even if it seemed so obviously related to her. Hello? Can you hear me? Nothing changed. Okay, so just speaking wasn't enough. What had it been then? Desire to understand? Fire! I demand to know how you work! That wasn't it either. Or maybe it was more than just her words. She focused, trying to build the same intensity she had when it did react. I'm not leaving until I understand something, even one small piece of this puzzle. I worked hard to get here, and I'm not leaving empty-handed. She felt it. It was building inside her. Not just words, but genuine feelings. She stepped closer to the fire and could feel the heat on her face, but she stood her ground. I'm scared. I'm always so scared. But I'm here anyway. I fought this battle tooth and nail. I broke free of that cage just for a moment to be here and get knowledge. I won't let that go to waste. What are you? Show me! The flame shrunk drastically for just a second, and Lily felt herself get pulled toward the center of it. With a cry of surprise, she tried to hold herself back but stumbled forward despite herself. As she felt herself drop to her knees roughly, the flame burst back to life twice as strong as before. Pain, searing pain, covered Lily for a moment and she screamed. She scrambled back away from the fire as quickly as she could, sure that she was burning alive. But as she got some distance, she realized the flames hadn't touched her. Despite that, she was certain she had burns, even if minor. That had been painful. Inventory check. Her phone was fine, the glass of her ever-burning vase had chipped slightly where it scraped the ground, and her seal was covered in ash but unharmed. Lily let out a nervous laugh. She was okay. Well, okay enough. Not dead. Not burned beyond repair. She'd take it. She'd take it. She looked up at the fire. It was still burning brightly. Okay, well, that had been a reaction. That had definitely been the flame reacting to what she had said and done. Was the key emotion? No, it didn't feel like that was quite right. It was more than that. She tried to hold on to the feeling. There she sat, staring at the fire, covered in ash, when she realized something else. The fire was doing something new. It was subtle, but it was there. She could see it. Just barely. It was breathing. No, that wasn't quite right. It was more like a whirlpool. Or she couldn't quite wrap her head around it, but she watched carefully. It was drawing something into it. She couldn't see what. It was like the air around it was being sucked into it, but it wasn't the air. Well, the air was as well, because that's how fire works, but this was something deeper. She concentrated and tried to see. The fire was growing larger. It was pulling more and more of this stuff into it, at a faster and faster rate, and as it pulled the stuff in faster, it was burning higher and hotter. She could see it. She didn't have words to describe it, but she had a sense for it now. This fuel. Whatever it was pouring into the flame, and the flame was burning it. That's why it wasn't burning anything else to sustain itself. There wasn't anything left in the library that was on fire. This fire was burning this stuff out of the air, and it was going faster and faster, exponentially. Wasn't that bad? Lily's eyes went wide. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. She jumped to her feet as fast as she could and ran across the rubble. Stumbling a little bit and slightly twisting an ankle, she jumped clear of the ruined library and made a mad dash to her van. She got it started, threw it in reverse, and swerved out into the street. Lily floored it. She wasn't sure what she thought was going to happen was really going to happen, but if she did, she wanted to be nowhere near. Her van shook with the impact of the blast, throwing off her steering for a moment. The van fishtailed as Lily struggled to get a hold of it again. She was lucky she didn't flip, but once she got control, she hit the gas again. She wanted to be far away before she turned to look. Chancing a glance at the rear view mirror, she saw a wave of purple smoke pouring down the road after her. The van wouldn't accelerate fast enough. It was going to hit her. Well, she could at least be as far away as she could. It was catching up. It was gonna catch up. 3, 2, 1. A wave of dark purple engulfed her. It was impossible to see through. She kept going, blind but unwilling to stop and see if flames followed the smoke. For a few agonizing seconds, she floored it into the abyss. Then, poof, thunk, she hit something. The van popped up as it hit the rubble in the road. Lily slammed on the brakes to try and mitigate the crash, but she was no expert driver. The van immediately went into a spin. Lily screamed and held on for dear life. The van came to a stop. She wasn't even sure which direction she was pointed in this smoke, but she was just thankful not to be dead or upside down. But now she was trapped. The purple smoke was so thick around the windows and windshield that it was as if someone had painted them. There was no telling what direction was safe to drive in, so she waited to see if she'd start feeling heat. Tense, overwhelming silence for a few minutes was Lily's entire world. All she could see was purple-black smoke. All she could hear was her own ragged breathing. What if it was permanent? Just as she tried hard not to have that thought, she caught a sight that gave her hope. She thought she could sort of make out the sky. She put the car back in drive and inched forward. Yes, she was sure now. The smoke was starting to clear a little. She patiently waited until she could make out the road a little, and then turned onto it. A few minutes later, she was driving clear of the smoke. She parked and turned to get a good look back. It was clear where the explosion had been. A large purple-black crater was visible from here. It had taken out at least a block, but it hadn't gotten her. She carefully climbed back into her van and looked into the passenger seat. Her seal looked back at her, did it? Covered in black-purple ash. Huh. Rough day, huh? Okay, so now we have sentient phone boat thing, and now we have like sentient different colored flames. But we have a nice flame in a vase. But green flame is evil and purple flame explodes, and it's crazy. Okay? We didn't really get closer to finding anything else, just more questions. More questions, but then it's more questions that we want answer to, and hopefully we will get some type of answer or clues at least next time.